Are there any big, marketing initiatives or something like that? Apple, fantastic marketing. Adobe, with Flash, great marketing. Microsoft, not so good marketing, I think. They've currently tried to release some sort of new promotion campaign to repackage Vista, whatever. Your guys' thoughts on that?
That has been an issue in the open source, but if you think about it, when you've got a community, you don't have a lot of money behind it, people are donating their time, it's hard to get some of the hardcore marketing, really get that stuff out there to the masses.
If you need it to be accepted mainstream. So if you can get companies like Dell and things like that people see on TV all the time, those are commercials when,
right.
The whole, dude, you got a Dell. I mean,
right.
that really put it into households.
Right.
Now, they still have their Dell commercials. You don't see Linux on the front of those commercials. If they started doing that, if these big companies that are supporting it and selling it started putting it right out in your face, like, ASUS has been going to malls and trying to, market it to housewives and soccer moms and grandparents.
Wow.
And once that becomes mainstream, once Linux is something they're not going, oh, what's that? Or that's something only, geeks use or nerds use, or it's that other thing that's not accepted.
Right.
You get it mainstream in Walmart with Dell on television. Everybody needs a Steve Jobs, but if we can just at least get it mainstream enough that
right.
it's a viable option, then...
Wasn't it just a couple years ago where it seemed like, everyone thought Ubuntu was Linux? There was no other distros, I had that vibe, it was all in the media all of a sudden, like, for some reason,
Ubuntu's done majorly well for getting Linux pushed more mainstream. The other distributions, they can easily compete with Ubuntu. They're all different. It's not like Ubuntu's better than, OpenSUSE or any of the others. Mm-hmm. Ubuntu did a really good job getting out there into people's faces and saying, look, it's Linux, and it's really neat, and it's really cool, and it's all about... even before, the sexy factor, the cool factor,
right,
once it becomes cool,
right.
everybody wants it.
Well, but even things like, like the newer version of KDE they're trying to put in a lot of the flashy stuff too.
You got to have that, right?
You're competing with someone else, you have to have that, but you're seeing more of that.
It looks like it pains you, though, a little bit, Does it kind of pain you? You're just I want my command line and none of this GUI, huh?
No, actually... I like the GUI's fine. I love the command line too, but the GUI's I always thought a good start would be, even if you get the schools, instead of Microsoft Office, go with OpenOffice. So even though somebody's using Windows, if they're used to like OpenOffice, and then maybe they're running Firefox for the browser, then if you want to switch them over to Linux, well, a couple of the main programs they use all the time are the same. It's not the big massive.
You can run the open source on Windows. I mean, there's almost everything that you see that's listed in the Linux distributions. OpenOffice. You already got Firefox. You got all that. That's all. You can install all that in Windows.
It used to be Red Hat in the enterprise. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. It seemed like the desktop for a couple years ago, like I said, was probably Ubuntu. Was the marketing buzz, anyways. In education, I have no idea. What's happening now?
Well, from an enterprise standpoint, you primarily still see like the Red Hat Enterprise or SUSE Enterprise.
Why are we seeing this?
Because they have commercial enterprise support. The companies are doing what corporations feel safe with. They're saying, here is this product that we're going to sell you, and we're going to sell you maintenance contracts, we're going to sell you support, we're going to sell you patches, and that's what companies are used to. And plus the benefit is when someone says we're having a computer problem, there's somebody they can call for support. Whereas if you get something that has no support, some of the more open projects for a desktop and an enterprise, then there's no one to call, and techs may spend hours on end trying to troubleshoot something when they could have just made it.
Are they actually getting more support? What do you think?
Well, with the purchase program, they are getting more support. They're getting a maintenance contract. They're getting 1 to 4 hours turnaround time on a call.
Mm-hmm.
The patches are going to be the same. You can go to the internet and download a patch. Mm-hmm. It's not going to change any. The community all works on that. Mm-hmm. But they're getting a peace of mind. They're getting, their business not being interrupted. And I don't know, that's what they're used to. They're used to that type of enterprise.
One of the things different is if you want to not necessarily have to go with a big support contract like an enterprise environment, it depends on the type of people that you currently have working on systems and what they're used to. If they're used to having that 24-hour number, they can always call, somebody's there. But as you start getting more of the people who are used to Linux and the open source, you get a lot of them that even if they have a support line, they're still like, I can Google that. Find it in about 2 minutes. It's going to be quicker than getting in queue on a phone line.
Schools that are getting donated PCs or donated tech support are probably going to Linux faster than people doing the bigger schools that have, massive IT departments and budgets.
Right.
And Microsoft used to do an entire push out where things were low end or free for primary education. So they got all this software for free.
Wow.
And, now they start saying it'll be $10 a session or, 20 licensing. You need to upgrade. You got to have more licensing.
Right.
And now it's going to start costing some money.
Right.
The first little sample's free, and then you know what happens after that.
I used to work for a college with an open lab, and that was one of the things I could do. I could call up Adobe, I could call up Microsoft, I could call up Apple and say, I've got an open lab that the public uses, and we want the software. We could get Photoshop for free. They're like, okay, because the public is coming in, they're going to see it, so they're going to go home and say, I've got to buy it for my computer.
Wow. Yeah.
So he had all that. So then, that was brilliant, because then you had hundreds of people coming in, all seeing this, they'd go out and buy that product. Now that's what they know. And while it was neat to be able to have all those products in this lab, at the same time, where I'm at now, I'm going, man, I just helped that.
How about in the home?
Like I said, the main thing, when you're talking about the home PCs, Dell is probably one of the primary ones as far as supporting Linux. But even that, it's not.
Still not on the front page. It's not on the commercials.
They support it, so the people who know to ask for it can find it. If you're a techie, you know about Linux stuff, and you want it, you can go out to Dell, you can find that. But if you just go to the Dell webpage, it's not going to be presented like, oh, here's your two options side by side. Hey, here's Windows, or if you want to try Linux, you can do all the same stuff. You don't see that. I think that's going to be a big push. The GOS, the little low-end machines that you saw
the
for a
triple
while.
E PCs are the ones.
GOS.
Well, it was one of those ones that when they threw it out there in Walmart, these little $2.99 machines, these things sold out right away.
Wow.
And GOS is an Ubuntu derivative, so it's built off of Ubuntu.
Right.
So Ubuntu's done a lot of work to get a lot of different distributions built off of them.
Right.
But the triple E PC is that little PC that you see people carrying around that they bought for a couple $100s, and that's what's pushing Linux into the home the fastest, is because now people that couldn't afford a computer, or students, or somebody that just wants a sexy little computer to throw in a purse, because you don't even need a laptop bag, and they're using Linux. And like, we have students call now for support to the college, and they'll be like, I'm using Linux. What's Linux? They don't even know what they're using. They don't care, because it's doing what they want it to do.
What do you think is the future? Period. What's in the future of Linux?
Where I think it's going to come first, a lot of the enterprise, because there's a lot of enterprises who are starting to move to Linux, and they're starting to even change the hardware platforms they're on. So instead of getting some of these big Unix systems, they're starting to go with the commodity PCs, do things like Google's doing with their cluster of how many tens of thousands of low-end PCs running Linux. You start seeing more things like that, and then I think we'll start seeing more. It'd be nice to see. I would love to go up to Dell, to their webpage, and see, here's our machine with Windows, here's one with Linux side by side, and I think that would push it. The schools is where I really want to see it come in. You get the kids start using it, they want to go home and use the same thing. Or when they go to college, then they're like, hey, we had Linux over here, I want to have Linux there, and then it will just propagate. And that's where
you get a lot of people that have been trained, and that's what they're used to. They've been trained in education. They've been trained at home. That's what they're used to using, and they're going to come into enterprises and be like, "What's this?" And then they're going to find out all their workers are already familiar with this other thing,
Right.
and it's going to be natural to flip instead of training hundreds of people to work on something else.
Yeah, cool.
So,
And how about the future of the show? The podcast.
well, I guess
Any other plans? What are you guys gonna do?
I guess we'll just keep going until we run out of something to say.
We never run out of anything to say. There's always something to rant about or something. But
Where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter.
Where can't we find you?
You can find me on Twitter as Linux Chick. You can find me, where else am I? Bright Kite as Linux Chick, on the website, Alternageek.com. If you go to /Linux Chick, everything is there. So.
Right on. And how about you, Joel?
go to Alternageek.com/TechMonkey. That's my persona out there.
Well, thanks so much for you guys' time. Really appreciate it. Cool.
You gotta be careful. We can talk forever.